Welcome to Invercargill in New Zealand's deep south, home of cycling Southland and a region rich in scenery and character. For the past 59 years, Invercargill has opened its doors to a small army of elite cycling teams who descend on the region for one of the biggest and toughest races on the New Zealand cycling calendar. Across 7 stages and 900 kilometres, the cyclists will face everything the roads, terrain and weather of Southland can throw at them. At the end of the week, the best will take home the titles and the jerseys money can't buy. This is the 2015 SBS Bank Tour of Southland. Even by Tour of Southland standards, the opening road stage of the 2015 Tour was brutal. The famous Tour crosswinds arrived with a vengeance, hitting 100 kilometres an hour and cutting the peloton to shreds. A hardy breakaway bunch of 5 escaped off the front within the first 10 kilometres. Roman van Uden, Mark Ryan, Nick Miller, Frank Sutton and Joe Chapman got out to over 7.5 minutes at one stage before the elements started to take their toll. It was pure survival for Ryan and van Uden, who were left to fight their way into the headwind from Hull to Mossburn. The two survived and made the turn with the wind at their backs to stay away over the final 20 kilometres. Powernet's van Uden had the legs to take the final sprint for his second career stage victory, the lead in the Harcourt Sprint Ace and the yellow jersey, with a 9-second lead over Ryan heading into today's stage to Bluff.
Probably the windiest I've ever done in a stage of Southland. I've done it sort of for about 14 years, so yeah, she was a bit of an eye-opener up around the top of Mossburn and stuff like that, how much the wind would blow. Mike Vink had a really good stage yesterday, so I just sort of try again today and see how it goes. You never really sort of know how everybody's going until they get up to the top of Bluff, so we'll give them a crack and put them in a good position and see what happens really.
The hill isn't long enough to really lose the tour, but you certainly have to, it's certainly a good opportunity to take some time, especially with, in recent years it's been quite a tight tour, so you have to take your opportunities when they present themselves. And also can be quite a chaotic run into the finish with the other wind coming off the coast there, so you have to be in good position all day and save energy for that final climb.
I think it's about 6 degrees outside with a bit of rain and the wind's just going to build all day, so I don't consider myself the strongest climber, but when you're defending yellow you can give it more than usual, so there's definitely a lot more to ride for today.
Mention the Tour of Southland to any rider or supporter and Bluff comes to mind. The massive climb at the finish of a long day's racing is always one that has been a defining moment in the Tour, and this year should be no different, as riders will battle their way down with often side winds making their way to the base of the hill before it opens up for the big climbers of the day.
The Bluff Hill stage is always a pivotal stage in the Tour of Southland. It really does depend on how you arrive in Bluff. If you've had fresh legs and the weather conditions on the way down have been favourable, you generally can survive up the Bluff Hill climb. If the weather conditions aren't in your favour, you can't hide and it can really torture you all the way up to the top.
Here the kids are out for the two Chapman brothers, supporting the guys on the tour here, waiting for them to come through in this neutral section in North Invercargill, Doug.
Typical Tour of Southland day here, all the riders starting in their wet weather gear. Gosh, that's a fine looking school, Julian. What's the name of that school?
I think St Teresa School in Invercargill, aren't they looking outstanding, out in support as all the schools have been this year for the tour. The riders really appreciate their fantastic support, especially in these wet and cool conditions.
Here we can see it's another one of the Chapman boys giving a bag of lollies to the school, Waihopai School outside the dairy there. We're coming past Boys High as well. It's just fantastic. The support, the bike riders really do appreciate the support too, and it's marvellous to see all these schools out.
So now heading down towards Layard Street, the flag has been dropped here, and once again, as we see every day on a tour, they decide to hit out hard after those early sprints, and you can see the Sprint Ace jersey there of Chapman sitting in second wheel looking for those early points.
Tour starts in the Tour of Southland are brutal. You can see here Fraser Hewitt from the Champion System, Team Dallas. He's an ex-local boy, come back to town. Great to see Fraser having a crack in his local race. There again is the Sprint Ace leader as well. He's heading off trying to win all these early preems. Fraser Hewitt's having a great race this year. It's really cool to see him out there participating in it.
So you can see the rolling terrain here on the streets of Invercargill over Layard Street, making their way out towards Morris Bush as Liam Aitchison now makes his way towards the front. So he's obviously sniffing around for a bit of an opportunity early on in the day, as Robert Huseman of the PowerNet team, one of the local boys, trying to get himself a few points as well. And they just split those guys up early on. Of course, if you haven't warmed up too well, this could be danger time.
Back at the back of the peloton, you can see some gaps starting to emerge. There's some echelons across. Here is the front breakaway, not a long way off the front of the peloton, but they've got a good gap on them coming down Finley Road, and these guys are all rolling through. It's a huge breakaway group. It's uncommon to see this at the start of the race.
Absolutely, Doug. Some 16 riders here, and it looks like some of the teams have got more than one team member represented. So there's going to be a lot of discussion back in that main peloton whether they need to shut this down, because this is not the norm. I mean, 16 riders, this could open up very quickly.
16 rider breakaways are really uncommon in the Tour of Southland, but you can see here they're all sprinting again for the preems coming out Mill Road. Once you get a group of this nature away, if they all start rolling through, Julian, it's a force to be reckoned with. And like you say, a lot of the main teams, PowerNet, Kia Motors, they're all structured in this breakaway and doesn't leave a lot of firepower back in the peloton, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So this early break at 26 seconds on the peloton as they make their way through the Morris Bush area. They're a bit distorted here at the moment because there's been a few of those early sprints where we saw Creation Science Aluminium Group Racing trying to get themselves in there for those early points. They'll have to try and settle down here and start to open up the gap.
Yeah, obviously you can see there's a crosswind blowing here, of course, as well, left to right on the screen, so that's going to upset the rhythm of things. But there is a bit of a chase being emerged here at the start, at the front of the peloton, and it appears to be the Oliver's team at the front trying to shut things down a bit. You can see the PowerNet boys tucked in behind, and also the Kia Motors keeping out of trouble up the front of the group. This is quite a cohesive chase, but they're going to have to put the foot down.
And you're right, Oliver's Real Food Racing at the front for a very good reason when they've got the under-23 leader with Ryan Christensen in amongst their team. So they're very aware already that there could be some under-23 riders in this lead group of 16 riders. As they make their way across the Longville-Dacre Highway here, the pressure is now starting to go on. This is an early start to the stage trying to get away, and some of these guys needing to react very, very quickly.
Some of these road conditions, Julian, are going to need a bit of care. You can see here Joe Keeper from the Avanti racing team, the New Zealand champion in the New Zealand team colours, taking it very, very cautiously around some of these corners. Peloton off in the distance. The gap is still not that far. It's probably only still 26, 30 seconds away, but there's some real cohesion coming on here at the front of the group. Kia squad, they're obviously trying to capitalise on their day's ride yesterday, and it's an interesting strategy, Julian.
It is indeed. As we mentioned earlier, some of these guys with extra teammates in amongst it here, they're not out of sight, out of mind, that's for sure. But are we going to see the reaction from the main peloton? Because at the moment, these 16 here are starting to settle into their paces as we look at former Tour winner from 2012, Mike Northey. He's giving the instructions, a very experienced bike rider, talking to the likes of Brad Evans from PowerNet. So they're now getting the advice of what needs to happen here if they are to stay clear of this main peloton.
It's interesting to watch some of these older guys going back through the group. You can see Brad Evans going back in the peloton, and you can see him having a chat to all the guys, saying to them, hey, we all need to roll through, we all need to contribute. You can see the conversation still going on in the back shot there. They will be discussing and having these talks, and they will be giving any of these guys that are sitting on towards the back of this front group a bit of a rev up. You've got to go through, and they'll be seriously making it well known.
And we can see the man in the red colours. He's just keeping an eye on who is actually rolling through to do a lap for this particular group. It may be a large group, but sometimes that can be to the detriment of the breakaway, where half of them can decide it might be just a free ride to the finish here. So he's ensuring that a few of them are getting up towards the front and trying to charge on as we look back to that peloton here, and a few of them have been given the job on the front. Interesting to see the team Avanti about a third of the way back in the field here with Lovelock, Fay and Co.
Yes, there's some serious wet weather gear being used here today, Julian, and you can tell that some of the riders from overseas are really, really struggling in these conditions.
It's interesting day's racing weather-wise here as we started off in fairly cool conditions into Invercargill here. There was the potential for snow and some very strong winds, but at this point in time she's a bit damp on it, a bit dark on it, but not too bad for these riders as they make their way out towards Loch Hill and eventually up and through central Southland and through Winton, etc., before heading back down towards Bluff. So these 16 riders now riding in unison together. They decided for the day this is the time to make the move here, and have decided as one unit together they could make the serious break, Doug, as we look to the faces of a few of the key contenders. Brad Evans there, the young man from PowerNet.
Brad Evans is coming into this year's SBS Tour of Southland with some incredible form. He's a winner of the Tour of Tasmania. It's a really tough race. Couldn't get better preparation. He's one guy that you would put a circle around before the start of this on the program and really seriously look at.
He's also, of course, a good example of some of the riders that have made their way through the junior development there as a junior world's representative in the past on the track as well. As we scan back here to the Peloton, everything looking fairly relaxed on it there. A few discussions going on amongst the field, but at the moment just setting a steady tempo as we make our way down towards the back of it, getting a good shot here of how the riders hide away in amongst this bunch.
It is very early on in terms of this stage, Julian. There's still quite a lot of distance left to go. We're coming into Winton now and the time gap is 2:38, so these guys are extending it out as the stage progresses. But everyone is aware that the conditions change, and we can see here once again the riders are at the back having a chat. It's the PowerNet boys.
Yeah, the PowerNet team, of course, are one of a couple of teams that have 3 riders represented here. So we can see Brad Evans and Robert Huseman in particular having that conversation about the team tactics. Who needs to be sitting up the front? Who needs to relax and sit back and be protected? That'll be the sort of conversations going on here. They would have analysed the faces of some of these other riders. Of course, a Kia Motors Ascot Park team, they also have 3 members up there, as is the Barry Stewart Builders with a couple of the men in the orange colours. So it certainly changes the dynamics in a breakaway.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation goes on in bike racing, Julian. You can see in the Peloton not so much conversation going on, just a whole lot of hard work. You can see here one of the American riders from the PowerNet team with a full facial scarf on. This man must seriously be feeling the cold. That's incredible.
And that's it with a lot of these international riders. Of course, they've come off a long season overseas and some very warm conditions for many of them here. As we look at the American McCabe here, it's the first time we've sort of seen this guy here in the tour as he talks to one of his team leaders, of course the former winner of the tour, as they share the drink bottles, get themselves sorted to make sure we keep ourselves well hydrated.
These guys don't come all the way from the other side of the world, Julian, not to race in this race. You can see, unfortunately, looks like Fraser Goff from the Avanti squad's had a puncture. He's going to have to chase on pretty quick and get back into this front group. That's unfortunate for Fraser, but one of the aspects of bike racing that can happen, especially in wet conditions.
And let's keep in mind, he's got no teammates around him. He is the sole Avanti Racing member in this breakaway of 16 riders. So it's up to him now to try and shut that gap down. But he's a well-performed rider, got a lot of experience. He'll take it calmly there and make his way at a nice tempo to get himself across to that main group.
Great school support again as we go back to the front of the main peloton, and you can see things sharpening up a bit. The PowerNet boys and the Kia boys have got the whole main peloton split and in tatters, so this is an incredible tactic here from the Kia Motors squad.
They're certainly doing some damage to this main field here and then putting the pressure on some boys who haven't recovered well after day one here. So a lot of discussion going on with the likes of Mark Ryan and Frame & Co on the front of it, driving things through towards Wallistown.
Here we are back at the front of the race. This is a breakaway off the breakaway group, so we're right at the front of the race now. We've got Fraser Goff and the rider from the Kia Motors squad, the Travis McCabe, the other American in the squad. Time gap back to the group is 1:02. This has happened very quickly, Julian.
Yes, it's an interesting move, and of course Fraser Goff will be one that's always quite keen to go out there on the solo attack. He's been joined by that American, and you can see the discussions now going back with the other 14 of their fellow members that they were with for the last 40 odd kilometres together. They're now trying to work out whether or not they need to jump across to those two. Will they leave them just sitting out there? They've got them in sight at this point in time. It's 2 versus 14 and a decent gap back to the main peloton. So you can see the hand going up by Huseman there, looking for a bit of support, but meanwhile the boys look up and they can see that climb getting closer and closer as they make their way down to the very deep south, the bottom of the South Island into Bluff.
This is one of the cruel things of this stage, Julian. You can actually see Bluff and you can see the road all the way up, and you're actually looking at that road for about 20 k's before you get there. It can be quite psychologically damaging if you've got sore legs, but these two out in front, this is the Avanti squad rider, Fraser Goff, and then the other rider from the Kia Motors Ascot Park, Travis McCabe. Bit of a kamikaze mission in my mind, Julian. Always safety in numbers down to Bluff, hit the bottom of the hill with plenty of matches left, but these guys obviously have got something up their sleeve. Here we can see them coming back.
Here we can see the man in the green jersey, and he secured a lot of points along the way. That's Joe Chapman, and it looks like he might have just about done his dash for the day as our two leaders now make their way to the turn into Bluff. Let's not forget, of course, McKay was second at the US Championships in 2014. He's a man that's ridden the Tour of California and is a pretty well performed bike rider here, and like his fellow American teammate, is out on the front here on day 2 of this tour to test his legs on the notorious Bluff Hill climb.
Impressive start from the Kia Motors Ascot Park squad. Intentions all the way. Mark Ryan yesterday. Today they've got the Travis McCabe lad here starting up Bluff. He's really going to have to get into his work though. This is very, very steep at the start. A lot of these guys will be running 26 to 28 tooth sprockets, which is just unheard of in any other bike race in this country.
It certainly is. It's not your standard practice. As we look down the hill here, about 30 seconds on that, give or take, and that for that next group of 14 riders. So they've got a reasonable gap here, but there are some very good climbers further back in that main field that could well make some inroads to these two as they now have to try and catch their breath. It's that first bump in the road, a little bit of a descent, and then into it.
Here we see Robert Hoosman from the PowerNet squad. He's having a really good stage today, Robert. He's a local lad. He's a triathlete predominantly, but he uses this for his training. This kid's got a potential career in this bike racing game. I think he's a real super talent. This kid's obviously coming along nicely. He's having a look over his shoulder. He's coming up to the next wall by the RSA Memorial. That's a really, really super steep bit as well. But Robert Hoosman is having the ride of his life here.
Let's not forget, as a local man, he has been the first Southlander in the top 10 for the last couple of years and has climbed extremely well up Bluff Hill in the past. So this is a serious move by him, and of course he has teammates like Sir Brad Evans and co sitting back in there, so that allows for them just to relax because it's up to those other chasers now to try and shut it down on Houston, who still has that gap to try and shut down on Travis McCabe. So it's 1 and 1 and then back to that remaining group now of about 12 riders.
Yeah, it's out of the seat time now, low gear time. Robert Hoosman would be the first Southlander to win a stage here up Bluff since Glenn McClay in the late 1980s. So he's making a nice job of this. He's got a good rhythm. He's out of his seat. He's not zigzagging at all. It's all power on. And Robert's making a really, really nice job of this.
Here he is making his way up towards Fraser Goff, the first of the two breakaways here. He's going to come past him. Fraser just settling into his paces. He'll just be pleased to see the end of the day. As Houston comes around the outside of one of the commissaires' vehicles, of course that's the race referees, he's settling into a good tempo, and that's what it's about, trying to settle down the body, keep the breathing under control, and just keep that little gear winding over.
Here we are back at the front again. This is Travis McCabe from the Kia Motors team. He is settling into a rhythm as well. He's still yet to encounter the long straights of Bluff. There's a couple of corners left before he hits the real climb properly, but he's looking good. He's in a nice low gear, Julian. He's spinning away and he appears to be doing it quite easily.
And the body language certainly tells the story. He is looking very comfortable indeed. He's chosen the right sort of gearing. Of course, he'll be one of many riders over the last few days who had come down here previous to the tour to test out the gearing range here. So a few of them have been up and down and checking it out, knowing what the corners are, what sort of pitch they need to take in there as they make their way up this hill. It's short in length, but it is certainly not in stature.
Not at all. It's a legendary climb in bike racing throughout the world now, and you can see Robert Hoosman's got the front runner here, Travis McCabe from the Kia Motors Ascot Park team, in his sights. It's a lovely thing to have up this climb, but you can see further up the road, that's where it starts to get really steep. This climb is brutal, Julian. It just gets harder and harder and harder as you go up.
This straight absolutely cuts people apart here as they make their way up. They can see the people waiting for them, the cheering going on in that top corner, but it seems to go forever and ever for these guys here as they drag themselves up, and they're approaching a corner which we've seen some very, very good bike riders in the past have to physically get off and push their bike up around the corner. Interesting to note, Liam Aitchison back there, and he's got right on his wheel Brad Evans of PowerNet.
Yeah, there's some chasing coming up from behind, but Robert Hoosman is still making a good fist of this. You can see here Travis McCabe is out of his seat. He's coming up to the steepest part of this whole climb, which is the last wee right-hander before you finish up another 200 or 300 metres, but it's really getting on top of this guy now.
That's the corner we spoke of there. That really hurts for these riders here. The lactic acid is burning through the legs, but Hoosman still is looking comfortable enough. He is grinding his way up towards the front here. This is a potential stage victory for the local man here. Every rider wants to do it, but to do it on Bluff is something legendary.
Yeah, Robert is really hugging the edge of the road. He's obviously ridden this climb a few times in training. And you see Travis McCabe, he's struggling away as well, but Robert is not that far behind him. Travis McCabe has really got to dig deep here if he's going to stay away, but Robert Hoosman is really having a fantastic ride, but the chasers are coming up on him.
He's about to be joined by the likes of Liam Aitchison there. You can see him in the black colours of Creation Signs, LMM Group Rico. He was a man who was third last year on this particular stage, and he is giving it everything, as is the PowerNet teammate. Brad Evans of Otago has decided to go. He goes straight past his teammate. No time for pleasantries there as they go into the last 100 odd metres of this stage, and he's got one rider now remaining before he can potentially take the stage. And has he done enough also to get the yellow jersey, as we see the rest of the riders digging deep, trying to find that extra over these last few metres.
Here's Brad Evans making his claim for victory. What an incredible ride up Bluff Hill. He's making it look as though it's flat. Brad Evans from the PowerNet squad, he's out of his seat. He's the winner of the Tour of Tasmania this year. This is one guy to watch, Julian.
The former New Zealand representative is about to hit the line at the top of Bluff Hill. It'll be absolute exhaustion, completed with jubilation here. Brad Evans, the young man from Otago, takes out the big stage of the day, one of the biggest stages on this tour, up Bluff Hill, as the battle goes on for the minor placings. Here we come with Aitchison, but he is not going to quite make it to Robert Hucker of Australia, who does a fine ride into second position. And you can see the riders now just grind their way. Hoosman there trying to come through. He's about to meet up with his teammate here, who has done an outstanding ride. He has given it absolutely everything. The smile says it all, and we're about to find out how those results line up. And it is Brad Evans now moving into the yellow jersey here on day 2 of the tour. Robert Hucker and Mike Northey, the former winner of the tour, into third position. In the Harcourt sprint ace, Joe Chapman was off the front all day long, picking up the points, moving to 52 versus 30 from Fraser Goff. While the Jesco Hydraulics King of the Mountains remains on the shoulders of Nick Miller. In the Henderson Construction under 23, it changes once again, this time to Nick Bain from Liam Aitchison and Nick Casonis. Brent Allnut continues with a 9-minute advantage over Brendan Ackroyd, his teammate from Placemakers. In the stuff.co.nz, it is Fraser Goff that is awarded the most combative rider of the day. On the Wednesday Cycles team classification, PowerNet, after a huge effort by all concerned, have a 2-minute 40 advantage over Kia Motors Ascot Park.
Surprisingly had quite good legs, and I just followed Liam Aitchison for most of the climb, and then just coming into that final corner I just skipped away and just had that little bit left to take the win. Roman unfortunately wasn't there, and he's now lost the yellow, but it's great to keep it in PowerNet and keep it in the team.
For our team now it's just about stages and just mixing it up really, and yeah, today I was actually feeling pretty good and enjoyed my time on the bike, which was actually a nice change.
That's ridiculously steep. There's nothing like that in the US that I've ever ridden, so it was hard.
Follow the 2015 SBS Bank Tour of Southland all week with full results, news updates, photo galleries and video coverage every day at tourofsouthland.com.